Chapter 2. Holland lived in a rented room in a small house outside of town. The owner of the house and her landlady, Marjorie Bronson, didn't care when Holland came or went as long as she was quiet about it. The widow started renting out rooms right after her husband died 10 years ago. She claimed she liked the company, but judging by the amount of time Marjorie spent at the casino, Holland felt it was a safe assessment to say that Marjorie mostly liked the cash. The tenant who rented the bedroom across from Holland's was a guy named Edwin, and Holland was almost entirely certain he was hooking up with Marjorie most nights after he got home from his girlfriend's. She ignored this information most days, including today, and instead focused on trying to make it through another day in corporate America. Holland was pissed when she got home, pissed when she marched up to her bedroom, pissed as she tried not to slam this door. While Julian probably already fired her at work, Holland wasn't about to lose her home. It was the first of the month, and she was paid until March 1st, so she wouldn't do anything stupid until she lined up another job. Shit. In this economy? How the hell was she going to find another job? She sat down on the bed and looked at her belongings. When Holland felt overwhelmed, she liked to make a plan. That was always option number one. Planning made her feel like she was doing something, like she was somehow in control, even when she wasn't. So, what would she do? First, she needed to figure out what items she would take when she had to leave Marjorie's house. If Holland couldn't find a job in the next month, she'd have to move. Marjorie was fine enough as a landlady, but she was still in the business of making money. A tenant who missed a rental payment was fast-tracked to eviction, as far as Marjorie was concerned. Holland opened her closet door. She didn't have a lot of personal possessions. Even though she made good money now, she always worried about having to leave on a moment's notice. Being a foster kid would do that to you. She had a suitcase, one of those large hard-shell ones, and she could fit most of her clothing inside of it. Her other things, though, like her books, would probably need to be left behind. Shit, no. She wasn't leaving her books. The car, Holland said. She could fit them in her car. But maybe she was getting ahead of herself. She started pacing, but she tried to be quiet about it. Her bedroom was right over the living room, and if Marjorie was in a bad mood, she'd shoot Holland a text to complain. Think, Holland, what are your skills? Think. She frowned, and she thought, and she made a mental list. Social media. She could do social media. She could do marketing. Hell, Holland could wash fucking dishes if it meant a paycheck. Only Marjorie lived at the edge of Westbridge Forest, a place that was supposedly haunted. While Holland was a full-grown adult who didn't believe in monsters, she still felt the fear of the town. It was palpable, thick, and hung around the community like a fog. In other words, Scarlet Creek didn't exactly have a huge restaurant community. It was a small town where rent was cheap, and Rose Valley was just a 30-minute drive. If she wasn't making very much money, though, Holland wouldn't be able to afford the gas. Shit. Shit, shit. She choked back a scream. She wouldn't scream. Her phone buzzed. Holland knew without looking that it was her landlady. It was late enough that Marjorie was probably invested in some new show that was streaming, and when Marjorie started a show, she binged the whole thing. Stop walking so damn loud. Holland read the text, but she didn't reply. What would she say? She was stressed, basically fired, and she didn't have enough money to carry her through. Yeah, she had to get out of here. Her bedroom window opened up to a large tree, and Holland had thought many times about climbing out that way. She'd seen Dawson's Creek, knew how Joey always climbed in and out of bedroom windows, but she'd also seen the ending of Pollyanna, and she wasn't interested in falling. No, she'd tough it out. Holland grabbed a small bag, shoved her knitting and phone inside, and pocketed her car keys. She'd go to the library. It was probably still open, at least for a little while. Otherwise, she'd hit up a bar. It wasn't weird to bring her knitting project to a bar, right? Definitely not. She slipped downstairs. Marjorie was facing away, eyes glued to the flickering television screen, and Holland slipped out the front door. She closed it quietly, walked to her car, and slipped inside. Half an hour later, she was back in Rose Valley. She parked in front of the library. The lights were all on, and she made her way to the front door. She read the sign, the one that said they were open round the clock, and she shook her head. Sometimes she really did think she was in a weird place. When she walked inside, she was greeted by a tall librarian who sat behind the reference desk. "Can I help you find anything this evening?" The librarian wore a perfectly fitted suit and a brilliant smile. Seriously, talk about alligator teeth. No," she said. "Just going to find something to read for a bit." Holland smiled in what she hoped was a normal, non-nervous way. The librarian stared at her for a long minute, and for some reason, she almost felt like he was trying to get a read on her. The sensation vanished almost as quickly as it appeared, and the librarian smiled again. "Well, if you decide you need any assistance, don't hesitate to ask." "Okay," she said, and she made her way to the far end of the first floor. Holland found a little corner where she sat on a small stool at a high-top table. Her back was to the wall, so she had a clear view of both the librarian and the front door, and she sat there for a minute before she remembered that she was supposed to be reading. Crap. She reached for a book from the shelf next to her. Didn't bother looking at the title, and she opened it. Holland set the paperback in front of her on the table, and she ran through the events of the day over and over and over. By the time she felt herself calming down again, an hour had passed, and she realized that she had a choice to make. She could go back to Scarlet Creek, back to her house, and wait for the call that would inevitably come. Of course, she was fired. On a whim, she got up, leaving her bag, and made her way back to the librarian. "Ah, ready for a book recommendation?" The librarian seemed eager to help. He also seemed far too perky for someone who worked the night shift. No, actually," she said. Nerves filled her stomach suddenly. She couldn't go home. That was the big thing. Holland didn't have a home to go back to, not anymore. Her entire life was sink or swim, and right now she needed to swim. She needed this. "No?" Are you hiring?" The librarian's lips quirked. "Am I hiring?" "I mean, is the library hiring?" "Are you looking for a part-time, low-paying role?" Yes?" He smiled. "You should sound a little more sure of yourself, darling. Doesn't sound like you quite know what you want." "I know," she said quickly. I know what I want." "Oh?" The librarian leaned forward. "Because from where I'm sitting, you showed up at the Rose Valley Library after 10. You opened a book and didn't turn a single page for an hour. And I'm quite sure you don't even have a library card." "Oh, Her mind went blank. Never in Holland's life had her entire mind gone completely blank, yet it did. "So, when I ask you again, I'd like you to be honest," he said. "What are you looking for?" "Any job at all," she said, blurting out the words. "I just got fired today, and I'm looking for any job at all." "Unfortunately, I do not have any job at all," he said. His eyes softened. "But we do have a career fair coming up in 2 weeks. If you'd like to bring your resume, I'd be happy to make copies for you to pass out." 2 weeks? Her heart fell. If she interviewed in 2 weeks, she wouldn't be getting paid before her rent was due on the 1st. "Yes." "I really do need to find something sooner," she said. "Do you know of any companies around here who are hiring?" The librarian considered her for a long moment. Finally, he sighed, waved his finger in the air, and started talking. "I know a few key players at Scarlet and Rose," he said. "I can talk to them." Her face went pale. She felt all of the blood drain out. Would she faint? Maybe she would faint. Shit. He knew Julian for sure. Why hadn't she thought of that? Didn't Scarlet and Rose make a lot of donations? They were a huge supporter of the library. Crap! Of course he knew Julian. No. she said, and she scurried back over to her things. She put her knitting in the bag and slid it over her shoulder. Then, ignoring the "Please do not place books back on the shelves" sign, she placed the book back on the shelves. "I can do that!" The librarian was standing now, heading toward her, but she raced past him and scurried out of the building, into the darkness, and went back to her car. As soon as she was inside, she started to cry. It was over, wasn't it? All of it. Yes, it was over. Her entire life was about to peak. She didn't even have anything to show for all of her hard work, for all of her loss. This was it. She placed her hands on the wheel, and then she heard a noise behind her. Holland's eyes went to the rearview mirror, but she didn't see anything at all. She didn't see anything at all. She felt it, though. Something cold, something on her skin, something she couldn't stop. She opened her mouth to scream, but the sound died on her lips, and Holland felt herself fade away.